Good morning. I'm Frank Kaufman, president of the Settlement Project. Good morning. I'm writing a book that is meant to examine the current ideology that is working most vigorously to undermine the fundamental values and culture of the United States of America, its freedoms and its liberties and its guarantees of equality and equal and fair justice for all, freedom of speech, the entire Bill of Rights. There is a movement and an effective, not only a movement, but an effective legislative and cultural work that is successfully, systematically removing the guarantees of God-given unalienable rights guaranteed all American citizens, which are being eroded and have a committed community in the United States, both in media and in basically all institutions, media, tech, and elected officials that are willing to directly undermine and remove the rights guaranteed Americans in our Constitution. So the book I'm writing criticizes postmodern critical theory, and hopefully it'll be out soon, but I want to get some of the thoughts out. In a certain way, there's not a moment to lose. We will be examining three revolutions that have occurred in recent times, call 400 years recent: the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Bolshevik Revolution. What the book argues is that the current assault on America has elements of Marxism, primarily growing out of the efforts of the Maoist, neo-Marxist government of China. A lot of people argue that China is a mixed economy and so on and so forth, but the essential elements of Marxism that are working to undermine America and destroy its foundations coming out of China arise and adhere to and are faithful to the earlier period of Marxism perpetrated by Mao, and it exists today and is being intensified today under the regime of Xi. But the more important thing is that the current ideological force that's working to undermine and destroy American culture and American civil and civic life grows out of an assault on the Bill of Rights. It's clever and it's manipulative and it's in a certain way an evil being perpetrated against us, but my purpose is to look at the philosophical underpinnings. So I won't be able to get into this in too much detail until the book is written and published, and then we're going to come out with a systematic explanation of the design and the corrosive force of postmodern critical theory. But for now, I'll just introduce little by little some of the key elements that we'll be able to seize upon and utilize in our thinking. Here's the core point. On the right, moral and constitutional conservatives understand that the human being is essentially a creature, that means a created entity, and all systems have the human being as created with the design of a loving God or a loving divine force, or exists in a divine structure in which our positive welfare is the cause of our creation. We're meant to experience love, joy, delight, creativity, bonds of care and affection for one another, family, and so forth. All of this comes from the internal and inherent design of being human. Through a number of philosophical directions and impulses since the time of the Enlightenment philosophers, what has come to replace the understanding of our character and our original design is, rather than understanding ourselves to be created with an inherent divine purpose, rather those who seek to bring about the positive welfare of human beings, look outside the human being for the cause of disturbance or dysfunction or disorder. And so on the right side, the moral side, the conservative side, the God-fearing side, we tend to understand our responsibility to build a better world as lying within each of us. We must exercise the piety, the reverence, the orientation towards our transcendent origins, our destiny as human beings. All of these are meant to, will be the path through which we can build outwards from good selves to good families, good societies, a good nation. On the left side, the fundamental point of orientation where the problems lie is not in myself, but in structures, systems, societies. Basically, the core philosophical direction and understanding is that there are systems that have brought misfortune and the experience of alienation and oppression to me. I am not the origin of any difficulties. I am the victim. The core understanding of philosophies of the left require that human beings understand themselves as victims. Once that is established, then what is required is that a certain elite core that presents itself as fundamentally superior and fundamentally capable of repairing and redesigning those societies which oppress people. They seek ever greater power, and ultimately tyrannies, fascisms, genocidal authorities eventually come to try to bring about those societies which no longer oppress people. There's much, much more to say on this. I'll be covering this in future podcasts. Thanks for listening to the preliminary introduction of that basic split. Remember, do I have any responsibility in the disorder of things? Do I have any responsibility in disciplining and fixing myself to make a better world? Or are all the problems in the world lie outside of myself? Other people, say whites or males, other people are the cause of suffering in the world. We must design systems which delimit those oppressors. If we're there, then who's going to do the delimiting? That's always where it turns to an elite, power-hungry force that will ultimately result in genocide. Thanks for listening so far. I'll be back again soon.